PM Port Novo, good afternoon, and 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. This is Newslink. I'm Abdullah Hassan presenting alongside
Augustine Cully.
Many thanks for joining us. First, the headlines. Several political and civil society groups in Senegal reject the June 2 presidential election date by participants of the just ended national dialogue.
We consider that in Senegal we are a country that is based in law on some legal regulation. Therefore, we are going to wait for the Constitutional Council to speak because this is the only voice that is audible.
Guinea's transitional president appoints Amadou Wariba as new prime minister amid government dissolution. President Akufo-Addo takes responsibility for Ghana's economic challenges in State of the Nation address.
The executive power of the state is vested in the President of the Republic. He or she is the executive. There's no ambiguity about where the buck stops when it comes to responsibility for what happens in the government.
And Côte d'Ivoire's demolition and eviction exercise extends beyond homes to learning institutions affecting over 1,000 students. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. The midday edition begins here in Senegal with updates from the just ended two-day national dialogue initiated by President Macky Sall in the aftermath of the presidential elections postponement. Sequel to Sall's proposal for a general amnesty, participants at the conference recommended June 2nd for holding of the delayed 2024 polls. According to them, this date will allow voting to take place before the rainy season as requested by the president. They similarly proposed keeping the list of 19 candidates validated by the Constitutional Council with the possibility of examining the files of disqualified candidates for an opportunity to participate in the coming election. The technical commissions at the conclusion of the meeting recommended that the Senegalese head of state should oversee the transition after the conclusion of his mandate on April 2nd until the election of his successor. These proposals remain heavily contested by the opposition presidential candidates and their parties as well as civil society groups.
For its part, a Senegalese major political coalition known as Aro Suno Election says it strongly rejects the outcome of the national dialogue and suggested a continuous gameplay by President Macky Sall to remain in power. This platform at the start opposed the election postponement and admonished strict adherence to the country's constitution and respect for term limit. Amadou Sam is member of Aro Suno Election.
Our first position is we ask the government to respect the decision of the Constitutional Council. And that's the reason why we have refused to participate to that so-called dialogue, because we think that we cannot dialogue or discuss in something that is already decided. So this date that have been chosen of June, it is going over the period, the deadline that was stated by the Constitutional Council. And we consider that in Senegal we are a country that is based in law on some legal regulation. So we have to respect what the Constitutional Council has proposed. Therefore, on our side, we are not going to comment on that. We are going to wait for the Constitutional Council to speak because we consider that this is what is relevant and this is the only voice that is audible.
That was Amadou Sam.
Still in Senegal, the Forum Civil has reacted to President Sall's announcement of an amnesty bill during the national dialogue. Parallel to Sall's amnesty bill, the Forum believes true reconciliation can only be achieved through justice and truth. The proposed law aimed at pacifying the political landscape concerning demonstrations that resulted in fatal incidents between 2021 and June 2023 will be presented to the National Assembly this week. Tawfiq Abdel Nasser completes the story.
In a press release issued on Tuesday, the Civil Forum raised concerns about what they term a prearranged or castrated reconciliation disguised under the guise of legality. They stressed the importance of the Senegalese people knowing the truth about the killings during the political demonstrations of 2021, 2023 and earlier this year. The civil society organization is urging the government and the justice system to prioritize establishing responsibility for these incidents, considering it as an essential step for genuine national reconciliation. They view an amnesty law as President Macky Sall's attempt to conceal the truth, evade justice, and solidify a culture of impunity. Amid a tense political environment, Senegalese jurist Ogo Seck analyzes that avoiding the validation of the amnesty law initiated by President Macky Sall is likely to be challenging.
This law is political because it is in a pre-election political context that is being proposed. In principle, as you know, in the context of amnesty, the aim here is to erase, as it were, the sentences handed down by the courts by passing a law in the assembly.
The draft amnesty law is expected to be submitted to the National Assembly for validation later this week.
Tawfiq Abdel Nasser with that report.
In Guinea, where a week following the government's dissolution, transitional president has announced the appointment of a new prime minister. General Mamadi Doumbouya designated Amadou Ore Ba for the position on Tuesday. Speaking to the transitional president, the political leader pledges commitment to adhering to the directives of the CNRD in efforts to reorganize and facilitate a return to constitutional order. Oge Oberika completes the story.
The announcement of Baouri's appointment as Prime Minister and head of government was made on national television by the Minister Secretary General of the Presidency. Immediately following the announcement, the politician took the oath of office administered by Colonel Doumbouya, pledging loyalty to the country and committing to collaborate with the Colonel for a successful transition. Formerly leading the Union of Democrats for the Renaissance of Guinea UDRG party, Baouri has reportedly been selected to head a civilian military government tasked with completing the process of returning to constitutional order within a reasonable time frame as per various sources. Having been part of the political establishment since the 1990s, Baouri is recognized for his less critical stance towards the transitional government. He was the first politician to meet with General Mamadi Doumbouya following the coup on September 5, 2021, which ousted Alpha Condé. Baouri is set to assume office at the Prime Minister's office today and has initiated consultations to form the new government, expected to be announced at the week's end. After the government's composition, he is anticipated to address several issues, including engaging in dialogue with the political class and advancing the process of restoring constitutional order. Urgently, he is expected to address the general strike called on Monday by the Guinean trade union movement.
Oge Oberika fight that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
As a reminder, we're live on WADR.org and on Facebook, WADR English Service. In Mali, the workshop aimed at validating the terms of reference for the Inter-Malian dialogue is in progress, extending into Wednesday. Launched on Monday, a comprehensive work plan has been put forth for the efficient conduct of the discussions. The 140 members of the steering committee and all participants are set to delve into 5 key themes over 4 days. Conclusive outcomes are anticipated by Thursday, providing a roadmap for the dialogue process. Francis Boniface has put this report by WADR's Ali Cham in Bamako.
During this meeting aimed at validating the terms of reference for the Inter-Malian dialogue, discussions will revolve around 5 key themes. These are peace and national reconciliation, political and institutional issues, the economy and sustainable development, defense, security, and geopolitics, as well as the international environment. The primary objective of the workshop is to devise solutions for the conflicts affecting the country, with Choguel Maïga serving as Prime Minister.
Nothing is beautiful about a peace agreement, but we've been chasing peace for many years now. That's why this dialogue is so timely. I, therefore, call on all of you to give your unconditional, and unreserved support to the transition president's initiative for an inter-Malian dialogue.
L'initiative du président de la transition d'aller au dialogue inter-Mali.
Participants, including delegates from all regions of the country, are engaging in these discussions. The chair of the Inter-Malian Dialogue Steering Committee emphasizes the importance of conducting a thorough analysis of the terms of reference.
It is this effort to contextualize and update that you are called upon to make. You must critically analyze the themes proposed to you, amending and enriching them where necessary, to come up with topics for debate and questions that will enable us to find just and to eradicate the ills that are undermining our society, compromising its future, and fueling hatred and division among our people.
Led by Usman Isufu Maiga, the work on validating the terms of reference for the Inter-Malian dialogue will continue until this Thursday. Subsequently, the steering committee will present its final report.
A report by WADR's Aliu Jamin Bamako and voiced in our studios by Francis Boniface.
More from the Sahel. Reports emerging from Chad indicate a fatal gunfight around the premises of the National State Security Agency in the capital N'Djamena. The exact number of casualties is that's unconfirmed, but local media reported several people, including security personnel, killed in the gun battle. The Chadian Minister of Communication, Abdurrahman Koulamala, said on Wednesday that the incident ensued after the arrest of the finance secretary of the Socialist Party Without Borders. He was accused of having plotted an assassination attempt on Samel Adam, president of the Supreme Court, on February 19. Koulamala disclosed that the attack was carried out by members of the PSF party and led by its president, Yaya Diallo. The Chadian presidency confirmed that the situation is under control and the arrest perpetrators due to appear before the court in accordance with the law.
Now, Ghana's President Akufo-Addo has taken responsibility for the current economic challenges, stressing that the president holds ultimate executive powers. During his address to Parliament on the State of the Nation on Tuesday, February 27, the president admitted that accountability for challenges squarely falls on him. From Accra, WADR's Nadir Tete tells us more.
In 2022, Ghana faced a severe economic crisis that prompted the country to seek financial assistance from the IMF, worsened by the escalating cost of repaying public debts. During the president's penultimate State of the Nation address, he underscored that, as the leader, he shoulders the responsibility for the challenges faced by the nation.
The executive power of the state is vested in the President of the Republic. He or she is the executive. There's no ambiguity about where the buck stops when it comes to responsibility for what happens in the government. It stops with the president. He or she has ultimate responsibility. It would be an unwise president that would pretend to have all the answers and refuse the advice of his official. But the fact remains that the president holds the executive power.
These statements come in response to recent remarks by the Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who clarified that the economic management team lacks decision-making authority and functions solely in an advisory role to the cabinet. However, former minority leader and member of parliament for Tamale South, Haruna Idrisu, criticized the president during the same address, accusing him of using the platform to campaign for his vice, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is also the flag bearer of the governing NPP, instead of addressing and apologizing to Ghanaians for the economic challenges.
I think that the president came to launch the campaign of his determined successor rather than deliver a state of the nation address. Our country, the economy is in peril. Ghanaians are going through unacceptable, excruciating hardships.
For WDR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
Frustration among Nigerians persists as the cost of food items continues to rise. In response to the escalating economic challenges, the Nigeria Labour Congress, representing the collective interests of all workers, has declared the suspension of its initial planned two-day street protests. This decision came after the first day of protest on Tuesday, aimed at bringing attention to the deteriorating economic situation faced by citizens. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja provides more details.
The surge in prices of essential food items has placed many Nigerians in a challenging financial situation. A visit to the popular Utako ultramodern market in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, paints a picture of reduced activity with many shops open but a noticeable lack of patronage. Concerned residents interviewed by WADR expressed their worries about the high cost of goods.
Country is so terrible. People are crying for all these things that is happening. First of all, if you come to the market with 50,000, you cannot buy a tins of a little bag that you can take it to your house. A kilo of a meat now is 5,000. Irish potatoes, a dustbin bag is 5,000. You can imagine.
Every day they add money, every day at money. No see you come down, go up. People don't come by market. People they bear come market.
While some lament the difficulties, others provide explanations for the hardships and offer potential solutions.
Before, for our village, hometown, farmers, they do palm well. But now, even these bandits problems not allowed us to go palm. Government do is, I want to make government help people because people too they suffer. People they in hungry day too much in this country.
In response to the escalating prices and widespread hardship, the Nigeria Labour Congress organized a 2-day protest to highlight the challenges faced by citizens and to urge the government to take immediate action. However, after the first day of the protest, the NLC opted to suspend the demonstration and issued an ultimatum to the government. They called for immediate steps to alleviate the hardships experienced by the citizens. Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, faced turmoil since the president's announcement of the suspension of payment for costly fuel subsidies in May of the previous year. Despite various efforts to stabilize the economy, the desired results are yet to be realized. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal, and online on wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Several political and civil society groups in Senegal reject the June 2 presidential election date by participants of the just-ended national dialogue. Guinea's transitional president appoints Amadou Woriba as new prime minister amid government dissolution. President Nana Akufo-Addo of Ghana takes responsibility for the country's economic challenges in his State of the Nation address.
Still ahead in the news, Cote d'Ivoire's demolition and eviction exercise extends beyond homes to learning institutions, affecting over 1,000 students. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports update.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
In Cote d'Ivoire, the eviction operation in Abidjan's autonomous district extended beyond houses, impacting a school in the working-class district of Yopougon. The demolition not only displaced residents but also affected an estimated 1,900 students who lost their classrooms. In solidarity with the affected students, the Student and School Federation of Cote d'Ivoire undertook actions including raids on several schools to protest the evictions. Here is Simo Edit with more details in this report by WADR's Albin Ade in Abidjan.
Donned in matching red t-shirts and headbands, demonstrators carried placards with the message, "School must be priority for all," expressing their support for students whose school had been destroyed. The march aimed to highlight the impact of the destruction on education. On Monday, the Student and School Federation of Cote d'Ivoire, FESCI, took action by removing students from several schools in Abidjan, responding to the destruction of a school in Yopougon-Guesco. An official from one of the affected schools confirmed that they received information in the morning about FESCI's decision to organize a march in support of the affected students. The demonstration follows the eviction of certain families in two popular districts of Abidjan by the authorities at the end of last week. This operation faced several criticism, including the National Council for Human Rights of Cote d'Ivoire.
A report by WADR's Albin Ade in Abidjan and voiced in our studios by Imo Edet.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
For today's press review, let's join WADR's Banjul correspondent Sankule Janko for a preview of front pages of national dailies.
Hello there and welcome to this press review. Let's begin with the Fourier newspaper. Government's domestic debt rises to $41.3 billion, says Governor Boasaidi, the governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia. NHRC concerned about moves to repeal the law banning FGM. Now let's move on to the Point newspaper. Alleged PIU shooter confirms Tom printing empty papers. Usainu Bojan, who's been accused of shooting 3 police officers, killing 2 of them, has confirmed that he was Tom printing empty papers. It has been revealed. OIC inspectors upload NRA, that is National Road Authority. National Dialogue proposes June 2nd for presidential elections in Senegal. Let's take a look at the Standard newspaper. CBG reveals interventions to stabilize prices of basic commodities. Man 78 jailed for 20 years for raping girl 13. And finally, let's take a look at a few stories on the Voice newspaper. And the lead story on the Voice newspaper reads, NHRC, and that is the National Human Rights Commission, expresses concern over moves to repeal Women's Act. Of course, this same Women Act also contains the anti-FGM law. That is, this law actually banned FGM in the Gambia. And finally, customer deficit in banks increased to $58.7 billion in December, according to Central Bank Governor Boasaidi. Well, these are the major stories making headlines here in the Gambia, and it's back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Sankule Janko, for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Well, our guest this afternoon is Ben Epson, a political analyst in Ghana. In this brief chat to WADR, Epson responds to questions emerging from critics of Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo, who criticized his last State of the Nation address to the Parliament on Tuesday. Take a listen.
If you look at some of the targets, they said they didn't meet them. But clearly, if you just oppose what is happening in Nigeria to Ghana, you will see clearly that the era of Ghanaians fighting over bread, to buy bread in queues, fuels, scarcities. Yes, Ghana has gone to the IMF, but one thing he brought out clearly without mentioning names, that the cost of living and the standard of living is far better and comparable to some neighboring countries without mentioning names. So he was able to just oppose some of the bases that the NDC had been using to campaign against them.
Were there any measures stated by President Akufo-Addo aimed at addressing Ghana's current economic challenges?
Yes. For example, in terms of trying to minimize cost of living by trying to lower prices, by not subsidizing fuel, by trying to agree on a healthy increase in minimum wage for the workers. So he put in place mechanisms that will prevent the escalation of the cost of living of the average Ghanaian. And vis-a-vis, the hardship comes when prices get out of control and workers' salary increases are suppressed. So he announced ways of increasing, giving workers more money in their pocket, and trying to suppress the increases in the prices of certain basic commodities.
Will Akufo-Addo's last State of the Nation address have any or make any significant impact of Bawumia's election chances, his chosen candidate?
Clearly, it did Bawumia a lot of good because as a vice president, whatever your boss, the president, says, you have to fall in line. And that lecture by Bawumia and Akufo-Addo taking the blame that any problem that many Ghanaians have, the blame should be on him, puts Bawumia in a very good state that he had to obey his boss, and he did that. Akufo-Addo taking the blame for all the problems, even though Bawumia was the chairman of the economic management team, tells you that Bawumia was only obeying his boss. And that clearly, for the swing voters who decide who should be president, who should win elections, was a massive endorsement and Akufo-Addo absorbing Bawumia for most of the problems the government has inherited, that he has the last say.
What do you see looking ahead for a country that is months away from the December general elections amid a spiraling social and economic challenges coupled with political tension?
I think that basically Ghana going to the IMF has eased the challenges many people have. Clearly, there is unemployment. People are not getting enough jobs, but the cost of living, the government trying to make the cost of living a little more bearable. The government announced plans to encourage employers to continue to be in business. That means limiting more people unemployed and companies opening avenues. It's kind of a far cry from the other countries where they seem to be going through dire economic restraints. First, he admitted that there have been challenges. He admitted that the country would have done better, but given the general economic downturn, he gave hints of what his government would do before the end of the year, and kind of hinted and endorsed that Ghanaians would be better off with Bawumia as the next president. But Mahama had come for 4 years, and people saw what he did. For example, during his 4 years, there was light-up known as Doomsaw industries ground to a halt. Even though Bawumia was the chairman of the economic management team, he took the final decision.
That was Ben Abson, Ghanaian-based political analyst.
And now in sports, Argentina will face Costa Rica rather than Nigeria in the gala match on March 26 at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. The world champions were initially scheduled to face Nigeria in Hangzhou and Cote d'Ivoire in Beijing during a tour of China from March 18 to the 26th. But the tour was cancelled after Leo Messi's absence from Inter Miami's preseason match in Hong Kong. Last week, Argentina announced matches against El Salvador on March 22 at Lincoln Field in Philadelphia and against Nigeria 4 days later in Los Angeles. The Argentine Football Federation said on Tuesday that the latest change was due to administrative issues regarding visas. And FIFA has reportedly ruled in favor of South African Pitsoul Mosiman in his case against his former club Al Ahly Jeddah. The Saudi club had terminated Musiman's contract ahead of the new season, despite the presence of a clause that made his contract extension automatic if the team won promotion to the Saudi Pro League. We have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukidi and Maudo Juf for the technical assistance. I am Augustine Cully.
And to interact with us via social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, now WADR English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is WADR's flagship gender program 50/50 with Nadi Tete, to be followed at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. By the second edition of our comprehensive news packet in French, Info Chez Vous, with Sani Momuniseibu. I am Abdullah Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New FM 94.0, and Veritas